A couple years ago when the inspector drove down, he had said to himself, I am never gonna pass a horse trailer as a milking parlor. And when he opened the doors and he looked, he's like, well, maybe I have to, because you fit the parameters.
What's going on, everybody? So today we're going to check out Breen Mesa Farms. They're a farm in Hesperus, Colorado, about 40 minutes from here. They get very little annual rain, from 10 to 15 inches, and they're making a full-time living with just 12 dairy goats. And they got a 4-season greenhouse they just finished building that's just powered by the earth heat alone, which is simply amazing, where they're going to be growing mangoes, figs, all these tropical plants here at 7,500 feet. So I'm excited to show you what they've got going on. Their unique pasture-raised goat system, where they have an FDA approved trailer, and even though they have 6 acres, they're able to utilize their neighbors' properties and expand their business. And the goats are eating the weeds, turning that weedy pasture into lush pasture fields. So we're gonna meet up with Greg and Adit, and they're gonna give us a farm tour.
We started grazing 1 week ago. So we put up a paddock just enough for 12 hours of grazing right here on this area. So you can really define the difference on the grass on that side and where they've grazed for 12 hours. And you'll see in a few minutes here when we go down and see the goats, the progression. Every 12 hours they've moved in the last 7 days. And the whole point of that is to make sure that we have as much ground cover as possible left behind. This is a pasture that really needs some improvement. And most of the areas that we're targeting right now have a lot of weeds, and that's why we're moving through so quickly. Because if we let them stay for 24 hours, this would be grazed down so much it would just be bare open soil. Now you're gonna start to see bare open soil, but that's because that's the way it was. And what the goats are doing now is trampling in seeds, and the next big rain, we should be able to flush out with a much better pasture, much more diverse.
Nice. And do you seed after them?
We don't. All the seeds are naturally, the seed banks are there. So very quickly in probably the next grazing season next year, this will have flushed out with far more clovers and alfalfas, plus the perennial bromes will start coming in much taller and much thicker,
Nice.
and start to choke out all the weeds.
Perfect.
This is our first time on this pasture, so we've never used this place before, the reason for that is we actually want to give a break to some of the places we've been on, and we always want to do a different timing on when we come in. This is the holistic management principles.
Gotcha. And you were saying, Greg, that people are chomping at the bits to have you bring your
So we've been doing this rotational grazing in this area for, let's see, about a little over 5 or 6 years. I'm not entirely certain. And people are starting to notice other people's pastures where our goats have been, and the labor intensive work that we do to be able to make sure that we don't overgraze or overutilize. And so you'll see here in a minute what it looks like to be able to rotate goats literally every 12 hours.
Awesome.
What you'll look at here later is the maroon trailer. That's the first and probably still only mobile milking parlor in the whole state of Colorado that is FDA certified. And what that does, it allows us to move off of our 6 acres, which we would quickly overgraze if we had to resort to a fixed structure on our farm to be able to milk in. So we push the comfort level of the FDA inspectors, but we followed the pasteurized milk ordinance, the PMO, to a T. And a couple years ago when the inspector drove down, he had said to himself, I am never gonna pass a horse trailer as a milking parlor. And when he opened the doors and he looked, he's like, well, maybe I have to, because you fit the parameters. So it doesn't look like a whole lot. It's got hot and cold running water for washing hands, and it's got the special type of paint on the inside to easily wash it. And so we're totally self-contained, being able to move around within a 10-minute drive of anywhere from our farm to be able to actually legally milk out in pasture. We've got a few goats that have just given birth, so we're waiting for them to feed the babies for another couple weeks before they come and join the main herd. None of the babies come down with us. As you noticed when you drove up, all the babies were up there. Yeah. We've sold quite a number of them with this the COVID thing, seemingly. I assume it's related to that. People have just off the charts been buying goats.
But this type of breed is called the Saanen, right?
So most of them are Saanens. The only one that's a mix is the dark brown one there with the broken horns, and those horns are broken because they enjoy to fight with each other.
Oh wow.
So But she is a American Alpine Saanen cross. And then all of the rest of them are the Swiss Saanens, including the dark, the colored one over there. That's a sable Saanen. And so in America, they actually call those just sables. They've distinguished them as a separate breed. And these are kind of the Holstein of the goat dairy world. So they're heavy producers. At their peak, some of these gals will give 2 to 2.5 gallons a day.
Wow.
So, and if you notice real quickly, we adapted these panels come out of the oil fields as pipe, and there's a guy down in Bloomington who then converts the metal into these stock panels. They're not really designed for what we do with them, but we've been able to keep them repaired enough times that goats are really hard on these panels. But this is what allows us to be able to keep the goats contained and really focus our grazing on a very targeted areas. So they got moved here last night at about 7 p.m. And you can see, except for the areas where there's some open spots of dirt, that's where weeds were. The rest of it is all, almost all brome. And they've had their 12 hours or so to graze on this. And here in a few minutes, we're gonna move them onto the new pasture.
And how long does it take you to set up each pen and move them?
Well, if we've got time to do it, you'll see. It takes me about 35 to 40 minutes. So the cheatgrass is very unpalatable most times a year, but it's an annual, so if we have them knock out all the seed heads, next year there'll be vastly less of the cheatgrass and also the thistle. They're in here, all the brown dry matter stuff that you hear crackling as they walk, that's all some type of mustard. And when that's green, they'll demolish it, but right now it's all brown and they won't touch it, but they are breaking it down and they're allowing it to become part of the ground cover. What we're really shooting for is 100% ground cover. And the reason for that is that becomes a shield on the soil. And what we're trying to do is be able to hold 100% of the moisture that comes out of the sky. We want it to stay in the soil instead of running off. So by allowing them to come in and only graze for short periods of time, very intensively, they're manuring all over, they're urinating all over, and they're basically trampling seeds down in the soil so that the next flush out, when there's moisture, boom, these pastures return. And what that's doing is allowing the roots down below to stay down in the ground and become a carbon sponge, which then holds more water, therefore holds more nutrients, therefore allows the pasture to improve each and every time the goats come through. They'll graze this year, and we won't come back to this pasture next year. So they will. We have about 3 other places that we graze, and it'll be amazing to see next year what the difference is if we get moisture. Basically, we're trying to mimic nature. So the panels and these little square paddocks that we build, essentially the panels kind of function as predators, keeping them condensed into a tight area and then forcing them to have to graze even things that are not as palatable as they would normally do. So they're not cherry picking anything. They're in here competing with each other to eat as much as they can. And so, and then, like I said, these guys on this particular pasture this year, we're moving them twice a day. Some areas we may end up even 3 times a day, as I've already said. But the beauty is you get to come out here and take a look at their manure. That tells me a lot about the condition of the animal and what they're grazing. If we were to go back in that paddock they just came out of, I noticed a couple of them had some clumpy poops instead of the deer dropping looks, the little tiny raisin-sized turds. And so that tells me that they're getting more green than they've been used to throughout the winter. And so they're basically going to need to have some baking soda here coming up to settle out their stomachs with this new first week of grazing. On top of that, you'll notice that what this allows us to do is basically focus exactly where we want to be. We could have started on any other pasture. This is absolutely the worst part of the pasture right here. So we came here first to demolish this down, and with that inch of rain we got the other day, I wouldn't be surprised to see some of the, in another month or so, some of the perennials coming back in, just based off of the way we've targeted today. So goats, by their nature, they're a combination of browsers and grazers, but they would prefer to browse. And so out here, they're not getting to browse as much. Now in our winter paddock, we took Christmas trees and put it in, and they eat the bark right off of the Christmas trees. And that actually allows them to have the woody material that they need in order to have really well developed manure. Twice a year, we have 6 different inspections, both the herd, the FDA certified mobile milking parlor. We have an area on the farm that's for washing dishes, and then the commissary kitchen has to be inspected, as well as the pasteurizer. So it's 6 different inspections twice a year. We just went through it this last Tuesday and Wednesday. The inspector came through, we've passed it again, and basically I think there's 3 entities down here that get inspected: the James Ranch, Cream Bean Berry Ice Cream, and then us. And from what I understand, we're one of only 3 FDA certified goat dairies in the whole state of Colorado.
Wow.
Entry level with that, yeah, it was pretty expensive. I don't know the exact numbers, but we were able to pay that off. The initial investment we were able to pay off in just over a year.
Oh, nice.
So, you know, what we've done though, we've taken about 10 years to develop what we've got here. So all of these females have come from a really excellent line, and we evaluate them on a number of different factors. If you look at this one right here, the white goats that have hair on the back of their teats, that's highly valued for us, because at this elevation, 7,300 feet, they will get sunburn if they don't have hair on there, and then they end up getting skin cancer. And so we've been selectively breeding. Not all of them are that way, but most of them are starting to, we're selectively breeding for hair on their teats. Also, we of course want to have teats that are nice size for both hand milking or machine milking, and the orifice is big enough to be able to actually let that milk come down relatively quick. We've had a couple of goats in the past that had huge amounts of milk, but it took 3 times as long to milk them because the orifices were so small. Okay, so what you're seeing here is about 3 days worth of veg scrap compost material that comes out of 3 different restaurants in Durango: Steamworks, El Moro, and Birds, and they're all owned by the same entity. And I have had an arrangement with them for a number of years now for me to pick up 100% of their pre-consumer kitchen scrap. Basically what that means is all the trimmings of vegetables, as you can see, omelets from Sunday morning brunch, and any other scrap that comes out of the kitchen. I take it, store tubs at the restaurants, and then come home here and put it in compost. So I just kind of wanted to give a quick demonstration of that. This is stuff that would normally go into a dumpster and go into the landfill, and I hate to see that happen, so I want to have everything get utilized on my farm. Some of this will typically go to chickens, but today specifically for demonstration, I wanted to make sure that I had enough to be able to throw into the compost and show you how I do that. At some point in the future, I think we'll do a composting workshop so that people can really get into the nuts and bolts of how to do this. But as a quick demonstration, this is good. Now, one of the other things I also do, another place is Sunnyside Market. I collect all of their fish scrap whenever they, about 3 days a week, they put all of this in 5-gallon buckets for me and freeze it. And then every 2 weeks or so, I pick up what you see here, about 3/4 of a bucket of fish scrap. Today, I'm gonna actually put it in compost, but usually what I'll do is mix this equal 50/50 by weight with brown sugar and the fish scrap. And I'll integrate it all completely together and let it cap it off with a bucket lid, and then 6 months later it turns into the most amazing liquid nitrogen emulsion. And when I get the time, I will come and take this whole thing in about 4 days now that that's been put in, and then I'll turn this whole pile, the outside of the in, the inside of the out, and then put the soaker hose back on it and let it go for another 5 hours or so. And the temperature in here will probably get up to, it's been hovering at about 110 lately now that the cow is pretty much gone. But certain areas, wherever I'm adding extra veg scrap, it'll get up to 140 to 160 degrees. I just add a little oxygen to the pile by turning it a little bit. Also, as you can see, there's areas where moisture, so unfortunately because of our dry climate, I'm not having all the money I need right now, or could use right now. I need to get a really impermeable tarp to put over the top of this, but not these cheap blue tarps, because they just disappear, you know, shred up in about less than a year with the UV rays here. But
yeah, you almost need an EPDM liner.
I do, and they're expensive.
Yeah.
Now, also in here, hard to come by this in bulk. I end up buying 2 bulk bags of it. This is biochar. Okay, and if you know what biochar is, It is basically wood chips that have been burned anaerobically. So we're basically getting rid of all the tannins, any of the oils, anything that was there in the tree is gone except for the base carbon. And what that does is, if we were to look at this under a super microscope, we would have all kinds of surface area and little pukas or holes for microbes to be able to live in. So what I do with that is I place it in a bulk tote, and I put in compost in a 5-gallon paint bag, and I'm just letting some of this inoculate just before having put it in some of my raised beds. You can even see some algae growing on the top, but this stuff is just been soaking. I actually had this full to the top and used it for some of my raised beds recently. So inoculated, and you could go through the whole process of aerating it and do all that, but at this point in the game, I really like the slow, passive style versus some of the more active where you really got to use it fairly quick. So what you're seeing here is a manufactured product called Greenhouse in the Snow. I purchased the kit from Alliance, Nebraska, a man named Russ Finch, about 30 years ago, retired postal worker. He developed this system and has been growing citrus in Nebraska throughout the winter for the last almost 30 years. So I decided that this seemed like a really good investment to put it as an addition to our farm. This, with 400 strawberry plants and a variety of other vegetables that are being grown right now, will hopefully pay itself off in about a year. Soon we're putting in an order for a variety of citrus trees, figs, likely mangoes, and maybe avocados to be able to be growing on the back third. We should have about 19 trees that will grow in here. In addition to that, on the north wall, we have a third of it will become seedless grapes. A second third will become year-round tomatoes, and on the last third will become passion fruit. So can you imagine 7,300 feet and having passion fruit year-round?
In Colorado.
In Colorado. Now the big thing on top of that is that it's geothermally heated and geothermally cooled, as well as cooled with a fan. The hardest thing, even in the wintertime, the hardest thing about this greenhouse is keeping it cool, not keeping it warm. So I've got tubing that go 10 feet deep down into the ground in a trench that I dug, and 75 feet out of the greenhouse, 75 feet across, and 75 feet back in at the other end. And basically what that allows is a blower will suck the cold air in at night, pump it down into the ground, and exchange the cold for the warmth of the earth, and pump it out at about 52 degrees all night long throughout the winter. So that way I should be able to hold the temperature of the greenhouse somewhere between about just above freezing to about 85 degrees all year long. And that's the goal.
In the summertime, does the opposite.
In summertime, it's the opposite, so I can take the hot air, pump it down, and exchange it for the cooler air, now 52 degrees, and pump out 52-degree air all day long. I've got an aquaponics system that's in the state of construction, but basically what you're seeing here is recycled CDOT guardrail as my retaining wall for my raised beds. I've got 400 strawberry plants put in here, 4 different varieties. These on this end are doing much better than some of the ones down on that end. I'm not entirely sure why. Some of them didn't take. And we've got some quick growing lettuces and radishes just to have some production coming in, just to see how it's all coming together. And at some point, this whole raised bed will become asparagus. On the back wall here, I think I was mentioning that we will have passion fruit, tomatoes, and grapes growing on a trellis all the way across the back wall. And then ultimately, the passion fruit and the grapes will actually start to want to grow down along the front side, and so we'll be using those as part of a shade cloth system as well. We've got some seed starts going in here. These are all raised beds for various plants that are going to go in the greenhouse. But can you imagine having year-round figs, citrus, mangoes? Well, mangoes will probably only produce once a year, but a number of these products will be able to have all year long here at 7,300 feet in Durango, Colorado area. Pretty amazing. At approximately $1 a day energy cost for the electricity to run the blowers and fans. All right, just wanted to say thanks for watching. Got a ton more things to offer down the road, but certainly appreciate your time and interest, and we'll sign off here.